Donald Trump coming off a victory in South Carolina in that primary, fully anticipated. I think the breaking news isn't that Trump was victorious. The breaking news might have been looking into how that voting went down. And then the other breaking news is that Haley has lost something which was a big lifeline for her, and we pointed to it on this show, and many pundits pointed to it, and that is a flow of money. Now, she still has a lot of money, but Nikki Haley lost that Koch brothers money. The Charles Koch revenue stream has been cut off now since South Carolina. So I wonder if you could speak to dissecting the vote and then what the future for Nikki Haley and Trump might be in your view.
Do they have the final numbers? I was looking at the exit poll numbers. It was like Trump with 51 to Haley's 47%. But I'm not sure where it ended up. I think she. I mean, at the end of the day, she wants to stay in till Super Tuesday, doesn't she? And she needs money to stay in. And the Koch brothers only want to back a winner. They don't want to back a loser. And that's how it goes often with these donors, right? They don't really care who the candidate is. They just want to back winners because that's how they've built their businesses. That's how they've made their money. And so, consequently, when it comes to their investments, they see political candidates as financial investments. Which horse to back? And unfortunately, despite the 2 impeachments, the paying off the porn star, the 91 charges, the 4 indictments, and now owing $450 million to the court.
Don't forget trying to overthrow the government.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that one. That's kind of a bit... That should have really gone first, shouldn't it? He is, in these regions, as popular as ever. But let's be clear about one thing. These areas, South Carolina especially, even though it is weighted, it is not... It's still a conservative place, right? But it's slightly more progressive than other districts. So Nikki Haley stood a good chance, and obviously she has form there. But ultimately, Donald Trump is... You cannot fight this giant. He is a giant. And the reason I know he is because he told us so. And this is the point that I want to make, is that Donald Trump is telling us that he's the most popular. Well, that's because, he skews the numbers. But you could argue that the leading candidate for the Republican Party should have done a lot better than Donald Trump just did in this primary.
Well, and isn't it
way ahead?
Yeah, isn't it that which, if you want to look at the numbers and begin to see what they might portend for the future, yes. I think that's what you look at. So 6 in 10 men and women supported Trump over Haley. Over 9 in 10 in South Carolina, and this is the Republican Party, were white voters. About 6 in 10 of them supported Trump. Trump won a smaller majority of non-white Republican voters in the state of South Carolina. Most voters in South Carolina in the Republican Party do not have 4-year college degrees, and about 7 in 10 of them voted for Trump. Haley did better among Republicans with 4-year degrees, with support from just over half of them, just looking at sort of some of these things. When you get down to ideology, this is again from exit polling, and Anthony mentioned the exit polling, and indeed this is sort of some of the stuff you find. 4 in 10 South Carolina Republicans voting in the primary considered themselves very conservative, and more than 8 in 10 of them supported Trump. Trump also won about 6 in 10 of voters who called themselves somewhat conservative, and Haley fared best among the roughly 1/4 of voters who call themselves moderate or liberal. About 7 in 10 of them voted for Haley. So, and then with evangelicals, as you know, 6 in 10 in the Republican primary in South Carolina were white evangelical Christians. According to exit polling, that's down slightly from 67% in the 2016 primary. About 7 in 10 white evangelicals voted for Trump. Smaller majority of other voters supported Haley. So he's got a lock on that white evangelical crew. He's got a lock on those who don't have college degrees. Not, and again, don't mean to overvalue college degrees, but just to say. And then when you get down to some of the issues that were covered in the exit polling, I thought it was interesting how they're clinging now to the big lie, the 2020. Do you think that Joe Biden legitimately won the presidency in 2020 was an exit poll question. 6 in 10 South Carolina GOP primary voters denied the legitimacy of Biden's 2020 presidential election. 6 in 10. Over 1/3 of Republican primary voters said that Biden was legitimately elected. Roughly 8 in 10 of them supported Nikki Haley. And then, of course, the question, if Donald Trump were to be convicted of a crime, would you consider him fit to be president? 6 in 10 in the South Carolina Republican primary would consider Trump fit to be president, even if he was convicted of a crime. So
but there's a reason for all of this, and that is because we are analyzing it as if he's a normal candidate. And this is where we are failing the electorate, because he is not a normal candidate. And it's a cult. Do you see what I mean? So all of these numbers, all of these questions are fine if you put them to normal voters and normal candidates. But the moment you put these types of questions, Mark, to cult members, of course it's going to be weighted. You know, especially that last question about if he was convicted of a crime. You know, because anybody with a moral compass would be like, no, of course not. I mean, look at the fuss that was made about Richard Nixon in the days before the cult had really kind of formulated. But now that there is a cult that cult members are in and they see him as the Messiah, you are never going to get the type of reaction from people that you would get in a normal election. This is not a normal election. This is a guy who tried to overturn the last one and will overturn or attempt to overturn this one too. Because he's going to lose, Mark. He's going to lose. And the reason it's a problem is because he is preparing his cult for the fact that he's going to win, and that if he loses, it's fraud. And we are going to be experiencing January 6th and everything that goes with that all over again.
I'd love to talk to you about this on an ongoing basis, the he's going to lose part of your statement. I'm, of course, convinced that he trails immensely in terms of a popular vote in this country. In other words, there's not support for Donald Trump by millions and millions and millions and millions of people. They don't want him anywhere near the White House, by the millions in this country. Sadly, our ridiculous system of voting allows for a president, first of all, allows, as we found, all of these things to exist at the presidential level from an ethical and from the standpoint of ethics and law that we, probably should open the hood on. But more to the point on electability and how the elections work. The elections come down to tens of thousands of people, as you know. I mean, literally, Biden won by, 44,000 maybe?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a sad fact that, we're talking about tens of, so if you move the meter just ever so slightly, Trump wins.
This is actually what I was talking about on the program yesterday, on the weekend show yesterday, that one of your listeners, viewers, was mentioning, that the elephant in the room is the Electoral College that no one seems to be talking about. And it's like, Trump is telling us that he's the most popular and he's the best and the biggest and he's going to win. And of course, he's going to win the primary. Of course he is. But on the national stage, he is unpopular. People know he's dangerous. People are starting to realize democracy is at stake, and they care more for democracy than they do for the orange guy. And so, but the system is rigged to favor Republicans. The Electoral College is a flawed system, and the reason they don't want to change it is because they know that if they went to a more proportional system of voting, that they would lose every time, as they have lost the popular vote every time. Has any Republican president won the popular vote? I think one, maybe. Briefly.
Yeah. Certainly. I think Bush won the Bush, the younger one.
Younger Bush, George H.W.
Yeah. But the Electoral College, you're right, is not reflected popular. It doesn't reflect the people's voice. It just doesn't. Look, there's way more than that. I mean, there are people in this country who will never get a chance to vote in a way that will matter for senatorial representation, congressional representation. I'm talking about Washington D.C., Puerto Rico. Even our islands in the Pacific. I mean, those people are citizens. They should receive voting rights. They should have representation. They don't for political reasons, naked political reasons.
Well,
And
it's
the same reason
racism. I mean, let's be clear what it is. It's, the Electoral College is a racist system. And that is why the Democrats have been challenging so many of these districts and these boundaries, is because it is a racist system. It's designed to favor the white candidates and the white voters. And, as we know, it goes back to the beginning of America's construction. So how do we right that wrong? Well, you could argue that the Democrats, whilst they had control, they could have done more and should have done more. I mean, I would have liked the filibuster to have been done away with. I would have liked the court to have been packed. I mean, and the Electoral College to have been overturned. But, they haven't really had the opportunity to do those things. And Joe Biden is a traditionalist. He believes that the system works, and he believes that bipartisan lawmaking is that we are capable of that. I don't personally believe we are. And so that's really where we're at. We're at a bit of an impasse, aren't we? Because we're just stuffed with the system that we have.
To actually change the electoral, you could do it, and there is an effort to do it through a sort of constitutional convention kind of portal.
Or the way we did it in the UK, where we tried to do it not that long ago, actually, about 12 years ago. They had a referendum, but they rigged the Conservatives rigged the question in the vote. It said, would you like to stick with the current first past the post system or change to the alternative vote? They didn't call proportional representation. They called it the alternative vote. And they said, do you want to stick with the first past the post? Well, first past the post sounds like best man wins, but it doesn't. It's basically the Electoral College system.
That's unreal. That is the power of manipulating the verbiage. Oh, my God.
And so the result was pathetic. I mean, a third of people in the everyone's complaining about the system. They give you a chance for a referenda, and then only a third of people vote for it.
Do you have it, Tony? A little bit of Geraldo. Geraldo was on. It's so weird. These people who are front runners for Donald Trump. Geraldo was on his Apprentice show. He's known him for years. I mean, Trump was a feature of New York society. I mean, by the way, always viewed as a grifter. I mean, really was. I mean, I know a lot of people in New York, and they always say, Trump is just, he's completely full of it, and he's full of the bluster. He was a P.T. Barnum figure.
Well, the best clip to play is one that I actually played on my show on Wednesday called Uncovered, which is a montage that my co-host Ron Filipkowski put together of all of the Trump TV commercials selling Trump products. And he montaged them together in 3.5 minutes. Everything, Trump ties, Trump steaks, Trump suits, Trump University, montage them all. And do you know something? As amusing as it sounds, when you watch it, it makes it absolutely crystal clear that Donald Trump is just a failed business salesman.
Sure.
There's never been anything like this.
Yeah, right.
And by putting all of these together, you can see how many times he has tried and failed to get something off the ground that didn't work. The only thing that worked for him was The Apprentice, and it was because he wasn't in charge.
Right. Mark Burnett was just a brilliant.
I think I'm the most honest human being, perhaps, that God ever created.
I'd love to send that to me, and we'll run it here with full attribution.
I shall.
Run a little bit of a Geraldo, because it's just so interesting how he's on News Nation, I guess. He's one of their guys. Go ahead, just a little bit of this. This is their reaction to the South Carolina
Chris,
thing.
Is that Donald Trump has managed to convince a majority of the Republican Party and a very substantial majority of the Republican Party that the big lie is true, that he was somehow cheated out of the 2020 victory. It is amazing to me when I think back to Senator Tim Scott and Senator Lindsey Graham on the night of January 6th, 2021, as the Capitol was smoldering from the riots, condemning Donald Trump in no uncertain terms. And here they are kissing his behind. I think that it's pretty clear that Tim Scott is going to be his vice presidential pick, it seems to me. He's gone so far, so effusively. Nikki Haley, come to cherish her. I would vote for her if I could, if given the chance. She's fierce. She's sincere. She's a class act. I like the fact that her husband is serving in a very dangerous war zone in Africa. But in all things considered, I thought that she had to do 40% tonight to stay credible in this long shot candidacy. She's slightly under that. Does she have any chance really of sustaining, of winning? I doubt it. Makes it interesting, gives us something to talk about. But
okay,
I
now
like
he's
her a
just
lot. She's definitely
now he's
presidential
riffing.
timber.
But I think it's interesting. There are a couple of things that are interesting about that. Then I'd like to hear what your reaction is. But one of them is the way that we've normalized Nikki Haley as because she's up against Trump. She's gracious. Her husband is serving the country.
Yeah.
I think it is all about sort of her grace under fire. If you actually look at her policies, she's a hard right winger. She's happy with these Supreme Court appointments. I think it's full speed ahead on a right wing agenda with her. That's the Overton window. That's what is now tolerable from a politically. From what is tolerable culturally within the political mainstream. It changes because Trump is so out there that you just want somebody who resembles a duck that quacks like a normal duck.
Well, I have a bunch of bananas analogy. Do you want to hear it? Will you indulge me for a second?
Okay, go ahead.
So let's say you go shopping to the store and you get there and there's a bunch of bananas and they're a little bit mangy, right? They're not beautifully fresh, but they've still got a couple of days in them. So you only want one because you're a little peckish. So you pick off the best banana you can find and you're like, yes. You walk away and you're like, I got the best banana. And then someone else comes to the store because they only want one banana and they find the best of the bunch too. And they pick it off and they walk away just as happy as you because they got the best banana. And this is really what we're dealing with. These bananas are all spoilt. Right? All of these bananas are spoilt bananas, and yet we're having to do our best convincing ourselves that they are edible when actually they might be good enough for a smoothie. So
is that well, I mean, and there you go. And so let me ask you, is there something as we finish up in the South Carolina results, in the way these primaries have gone down in exit polling? Is there something here that would suggest that the Trump banana won't make it to the finish line? You've said and suggested that he won't.
Well, because as I said earlier, he didn't get as high a percentage of the vote as he should have done. If he's genuinely the clear winner, then he should have had 80% of the vote, and that didn't happen. But the more serious point here is that these are just Republican primaries. Then it's not a barometer for a general election. And so you're basically just asking Republicans to vote for Republicans. So a Republican's always going to win. So it's really, we can analyze it. We can talk to death about it. But, Trump is a cult leader and a clear winner, and he only needs enough of the vote to win in each of these primaries. He's going to, even if he goes to jail, he's still going to be the candidate. Right? Nothing is going to change. He can run for president from prison, oddly, and because it's a cult and not a normal situation, voters will go for that. Unfortunately, we have this rigged system, this electoral college system that could win it for him, and he will then claim that it's because he is the most popular and because what he does is what people want and everything else. The reality is he is so far from what the American people need or want. So far, he is extreme. He has welcomed in extremist groups into his fold because he wanted the votes. So everybody was fair game, from Oath Keepers and Proud Boys and fine people on both sides. Bring them in. Let them, why not?
Well, that was what his presidency was. You had visitors to the White House like, what's his name? The guy who, denied that Sandy Hook happened.
Alex Jones.
Alex Jones, thank you. You had Diamond and Silk. You had, every.
But these they are still fringe. They are still fringe because the majority of hardworking Americans are not engaged in politics. They're not voting in primaries. They're not taking to social media. They're doing their jobs. They're getting on with their life. And they might wake up a little bit in the last 2 months of the election cycle and be like, okay, who am I going to vote for? And by then, by October time, there is going to be a real different landscape. There will be more cases. There'll be more, the Stormy Daniels case. Everything else is coming up. And there'll be a change in the Ukraine war. I think that there'll be a shift there. There'll be a shift in Gaza, I think, as well, which will change the national conversation and people's opinion of Joe Biden. The economy will by then have 2 solid years of growth, and which you cannot deny. And even on Fox, they're basically now saying, yep, okay, this is Joe Biden's, Bidenomics. And so the landscape is going to look very different. So, yeah, we can get excited and distracted by primaries where, which banana is going to win. But at the end of the day, we shouldn't really be getting too excited until September, October time, when the political landscape in America will be completely different.
And of course, add to this, and we'll talk maybe next week or soon, add to this the Democrats whose favorite pastime is really going after each other. And so there's this movement against Joe Biden, and it's a powerful one. And so I think that pushing back on that becomes something that the Biden people have to do.
They have a lot up their sleeve. They have an awful lot of very good electioneering up their sleeve in terms of social media and ads. Trump has given them so much material now to work with. Even the video of him taking ownership of the reversal of Roe versus Wade. I did that. Women should be punished. All that stuff. Those are the videos that are going to be played. This election, a little bit like the midterms and certainly 2020, comes down to Dobbs. This is another Dobbs election.
Yeah, I mean, it may indeed be, because I think that narrative, other narratives are allowed to float out there, and they've kind of settled in by now. Republicans are better on business, Trump's better on business, blah, blah, blah. When, as you say, the reality is just the contrary. The 5-minute news, get it. It's now a video. You can see Anthony Davis. My God. He also does the weekend show, and he does other shows. He does the
Uncovered on a Wednesday.
Uncovered. I love that show. Yeah. And you can see him here whenever we can grab him. We do. Maybe we'll grab you again next week. I love talking to you, Anthony Davis. Thank you.
Likewise.
Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.